I'm Jim Check with Now Media. With me, Ian Burns, managing editor, out there in the nation's capital. Kind of a cloudy, smoky day. Well, not cloudy, smoky day here in the valley. And how are things out in the nation's capital?
It was very foggy to start the day. Not smoke, but fog. Um, that's quite nice now. Mid-20s, sunny.
Our
It's
theme
all
for
right.
today, Canadian economy in big trouble. And another day, another failed Liberal policy. The climate clowns in the Liberal caucus question Carney's direction. And the temporary foreign workers facing opposition from Conservatives and now the NDP. Big tech meets at the Whitehouse. Crime, and more crime in Canada. And I interviewed the Terry Young, the Minister of Community Safety here for the BC NDP. That you can watch that, and we'll have a story on that later. And will the Liberals actually cut spending? All that and a lot more on the Really Big Show. We kind of do news differently. Like what you see, make sure you like, share, subscribe. I think there's a hype button that's been made available on YouTube as well. If you could hit that hype button, that's great. And we had people, actually a few people contributed. There's a tip jar on YouTube. And we do thank the people that have hit the tip jar. That's awesome. You know what I mean? Like, if you're going to tip everybody else, you might as well tip us. There you go.
Very generous.
We've been talking about this forever. We've been saying they must repeal the EV mandate. And here you go. Finally, we were wondering how they were going to do it. We knew they were going to do it, even though they adamantly said they wouldn't do it. Isn't it typical? They adamantly said they wouldn't do it. But now they're just saying they're going to pause the 2026 EV target. And he announced a Buy Canada policy. There you go. Carney says that he will transform Canada's economy into a force that can withstand the trade shocks. The measures announced in the strategy target to help workers and businesses that are impacted by the trade. You know, the typical talk there. What are we getting out of this, though? What is the Buy Canada policy here?
Well, it was quite interesting because he was talking about, like you said, right now it's kind of like a preference, and you're kind of supposed to buy Canadian, but he said he's going to make it so it's more formal. And he was talking. I think it was like just a mistake. I don't think he meant to use this word, but he said we're going to make sure that we always buy Canadian content. And I just like immediately, as I'm sure for you it just did, it made me think of how they spend so much money on Facebook while creating a law that bans news from Facebook and screws us as we produce our delicious content here. But I just found that quite funny, especially since we did those stories on how they spent God knows how much money on Facebook. I mean, quite obviously, that's not giving money, is it, to Canadian companies? But yeah, this whole thing, I found it quite interesting. The 60-day review. That's how a spineless, clueless government
Another
kills something.
stall. Like, what do you need to
Yeah,
review?
I
Like,
mean,
it's
well,
pretty obvious.
that'll probably end up coming back saying, "Oh yeah, let's get rid of it." But it's just rather than just come out and say months ago, which is what he probably should have done, and just say, "This is stupid, isn't it?" Okay, let's not do that. I'm just going to kill it. Instead of that, everything must be done in with this ridiculous smoke and mirrors. You have this 60-day review, then they'll come back and they'll have some other sort of like there'll be something, some kind of olive branch to the environmental fanatics in the Liberal Party that they must appease
Well, we
to
just saw a
if they're going
photo
to have
op.
a coalition that works and functions.
We just saw a photo op with Chrystia Freeland. Remember, she was sitting with the 5 CEOs, the auto execs there, and she was like all for the mandate. You know, the big photo op. We're working together, and their message clearly was, and the EV mandate, or there will be no auto manufacturing sector in Canada. They ignored it because they just don't know how to backpedal, or they don't know how to, I guess, deal with this. We're going to talk about it later. The climate clowns that are still in their cabinet.
But I just feel like Carney, we know, and we've been talking about this for months, if not years now. We know that there's a list of things that need to be killed from the Trudeau era. I mean, anybody that sort of follows Canadian politics knows this. Mark Carney obviously knows this. What I find so strange is that he came out all guns blazing, didn't he? And he killed the consumer side of the carbon tax right away. And that's when he had like his maximum credibility, let's say, within the Liberal Party, and he killed that. Then he's won the election. He's like king of the world. And very, very slowly he's coming out and he's changing these things like bit by bit by bit. And I just find that a very strange way to do it. I think what he should have done is sort of like a Nikita Khrushchev style speech where Khrushchev famously condemned Stalin when he succeeded Stalin. I feel like Carney should have done that and said, look, Trudeau was a bit stupid, wasn't he? He was daft. Here's a list of stupid things that stupid man did. I'm going to get rid of them because I'm not stupid. I'm the clever boy. And I just got us elected again, even though nobody gave the Liberals a hope. But I just did it. That's when he should have done it, I feel. But instead, it's like this tiny like drip, isn't it? And then, next is going to be, well, God knows what, but he's got a long list of things. He's going to remove that. Maybe the temporary foreign worker program. It just seems a little bit unwise from a political perspective because obviously, like we haven't mentioned yet, this is another victory for Pierre Poilievre. And then if there are changes made to the temporary foreign worker program, that's another victory for Pierre Poilievre. And eventually people are going to realize, like, hold on, Poilievre kind of, is he in charge of this government or is it Mark Carney? So I just feel like you should have got rid of them all in one go because we all know what they are. We all know what the losers are from the Trudeau era.
Scott Moe came out in a little bit of support for Mark Carney, and you can see why, because in this package he announced today, there was some agricultural relief. There will be a $370 million biofuel production incentive. Clean fuel regulations will be amended to help biofuels industry. Canola oils will get relief from the federal government to help it bear the China's 75.8% on Canadian canola. So we'll see where that all shakes out at the end of the day. But the big news, this would have been the headline if it wasn't for the backpedaling on the EV mandate, which we knew they should have done. I mean, we called that a long time ago. We've been harping on the EV mandate forever.
Also, remember note the timing. It's not by accident. He's done this to kill that headline. He doesn't want us to talk about the unemployment figures because he knows when they're going to be released. We all know when they're going to release them. So Carney's people said, okay, that's when we'll do it. That's when we'll take the headlines.
Because this is the one that should be. This is the one that matters. Canada lost 66,000 and the unemployment rate is now over 7%. And that's not great news for Canada. And that number will get worse. That number will get worse. And we've got a graph here to show you where, like some of those numbers are pretty bad here.
Terrible.
Yeah, so you should look away if you don't like it, because there's 66,000 fewer jobs. Like we've gone from 6.9 to 7.1. People are going to say when this recession hits Canada, like there's some people already saying we're in the recession, and they're going to do their best to try and say we're not in a recession. But these are recessionary numbers. If we look at that map there. Doesn't look, especially in Ontario, which used to be the manufacturing hub of Canada, 7.7%, right? 7.7%. That's just.
And it represents such a huge chunk of the Canadian population. Like it really is very, very important what happens there. Where it may be less important when you look at like Yukon, for example. They seem to be doing relatively okay, but that's such a small population, isn't it, compared to Ontario? And a little bit worrying, I think, for Alberta there. 8.4% is pretty huge, isn't
it? They need to release the resources and just let them go. And look at Newfoundland. When these numbers are actually realistically worse. These are the official numbers. So like this is one, like even if you say like, it's almost 1 in 10 people now out of work in Canada.
Well, I think, I mean, it depends on who you class as unemployed, doesn't it? It's that old argument that it's been going on for a long time. But 1.6 million people classed as out of work. I mean, that's pretty huge. And that's just, like I said, that's just the people that Statistics Canada is willing to recognize as unemployed. There are many, many more people that just aren't listed here because for various reasons.
Yeah, that choose not to work and they've dropped out of the place there. But construction, the layoffs there are huge. So, actually they gained in that one. But construction overall is in tough shape though too, right? So.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is probably that's probably one to watch construction, and I think that's a bit of a sort of red herring because from
Yeah.
what we've been reading and seeing, I think that's gonna dramatically collapse. And as we know with construction, it's often temporary work anyway, isn't it? It's often kind of like seasonal and it's short jobs and things like that. So I think that can go up and down really, really quickly.
Yeah, abysmal numbers, though. Abysmal numbers. The Bank of Canada, I don't believe they're going to have any choice but to cut. It sounds like the Fed in the U.S. is going to cut too, so that'll relieve some pressure on Canada to cut as well. They need to stimulate this economy. They need a bigger than a 0.25 cut. Like they want to, if Mark Carney wants to make any kind of impact, they're going to need to do like a half point, 0.75, something to show that they're serious about what's going on. Because most of Canadian wealth is in real estate. And that seems to be collapsing around people's ears. But,
Yeah.
this is the thing we talked about at the top there. Mark Carney facing some internal pressures now because now there's Liberal MPs forming an environmental caucus right around him, say they want to ensure Carney remains true to his values. So there's a bit of pushback there, right on cue, right? Meanwhile, a group of Liberal MPs, as some grid parliamentarians have been quietly expressing concern that Mark Carney has been relegating climate policies since becoming PM. Speaking to CBC anonymously, 2 MPs said Carney should be highlighting. Imagine that, they spoke to CBC, right?
Anonymously.
Imagine that. Should be highlighting his former job as special climate envoy of the UN. One of them said, not a word about what's going on. We want to make sure that he remains true to his values. But one Liberal MP with a different perspective, also remaining anonymous, told the CBC, under Trudeau, we had a very punitive environmental policy and just frustrated everybody. So there's some split there. And it's obvious. Like you got extremists like Stephen Guilbeault, who didn't even want to build roads. I mean, you can pretty much guess who's the people that are doing this.
Yeah, and it's to be honest, we do like to bash Quebec a bit now and then, don't we? But I mean, that's where a lot of these MPs are. There's anybody who's been to Quebec, anybody that knows anything about Quebec knows that they have a very interesting attitude towards the environment and climate politics and so on, and it kind of stands out a bit, even compared to the likes of Toronto and Vancouver and things like that. Like they're very very ardent defenders of the environment. I suppose that's how they would describe themselves. And this is, again, it's like the central problem with the Liberal Party, which is that it sort of fundamentally exists for people in Quebec who want Quebec to remain part of Canada. That's basically what the Liberal Party is. So those people really matters what these people from Montreal think about the climate. And here we are. And this sort of answers a lot of questions, though, doesn't it? Like, why has he been so slow? Why has he been so vague? Why didn't he use the words oil and gas for however long? Why is it taking him this long to notice that the EV mandate is going to destroy the car industry? This is the answer, because he doesn't want to alienate these people who might, if as enough time passes, they might build the strength to get rid of him as the leader of the Liberal Party. So he has to look after his own backyard.
And CBC, no stranger to the climate agenda as well. So it's amazing that they leaked it to CBC. Imagine that, eh?
Well, it's actually a really good article, to be honest, in that it gives us a bit of insight into the Liberal Party. But it's also an article that proves what we've said all along, which is that the CBC is basically a kind of semi-separate press office attached to the Liberal Party. That's what it is. But because that's what it is, because it is so embedded in the Liberal Party and it's so obviously a Liberal Party organization, they get access to things like this, whereas other publications wouldn't even get this access. So it's good overall, but it also reveals what the CBC is.
Well, here's Holly Doan, the Blacklock's highlighting this one here. Federal agencies are considering mandatory QR codes on consumer products so Canadians can gauge the climate impact of their purchases, according to a Privy Council report. And no budget disclosed, though. The government Canada considering implementing those codes to provide consumers information to make informed purchasing decisions. There you go. The proposal was unpopular, according to the findings from questionnaires from 2,500 people nationwide. That's what you need. A QR code, right?
I mean, again, when is it going to happen? When are we going to have a realistic conversation about climate change and about the environment and about CO2 emissions. When are we going to enter the real world and have that conversation?
And
And
here's
when are we gonna like learn as a country that there is nothing we can do, nothing at all. There's nothing we can do in Canada to save the planet. Well, there's one thing we could do, which is invent some technology and then give it to the rest of the world for free. That would end CO2 emissions. But obviously that is a little bit of a stretch. But in terms of cutting back on flying or whatever it might be, eating burgers, there's nothing we can do there. Nothing at all.
This labeling was proposed under Bill S5, an act to amend the Canadian Environmental Protection Act passed by Parliament in 2023. The bill made no mention of QR codes, but asserted in its preamble that every right has a right to a healthy environment. And then Environment Minister Stephen Guilbeault in 2022 testified at the Senate Environment Committee acknowledged the right to a healthy environment reference was vague and undefined. Though regulations, we will define how this new right will be implemented. Stephen Guilbeault having a lot less power in this caucus than he had in the last Liberal government under Justin Trudeau, though.
I feel like that one sentence from Stephen Guilbeault there is so valuable, where he says, through regulations, we will define how this new right will be implemented. If you want an idea of what the left in the Western world has been for the last 70 years or so, 60, 70 years, it's that sentence. Yeah. We're going to invent a new right, and then we will decide which regulations to impose to implement that right.
The right over you.
I mean, this is the excess of the Liberal left over the last 6 decades in a nutshell. This is almost like I want to frame this. I want to put this in a museum or something like that. It's beautiful.
Yeah, the right over you for less rights for you. The right over you.
We'll do it. We'll make sure that we do the regulations. We're in charge of this right. It's not a right as in like the old idea of an English right from English common law, like the right to trial by jury or something. It's nothing like that. It's something that we decide. We decide what it means. We decide how to implement it. We decide how many people we have to hire to make sure that it works.
Yeah. It's less rights for you, more rights for the government to regulate. The latest major poll, though, shows the Tories ahead of the Liberals, and the Carney's favorability ratings are dropping. And, ever since Poilievre has regained his seat there in Parliament, he's definitely picked up some steam. And then they're going to be back in the the Parliament here, at the end of next week, the week following. They should be back in.
Yeah, 10 days. I mean, it's a good poll for the Tories and a bad poll for the Liberals. But if you look underneath the hood there, it also shows that Pierre Poilievre's favourability ratings are on the decline. So again, it's this issue with the Tories where, I don't know, Pierre Poilievre is like their biggest strength and their biggest weakness at the same time. And I think this is like, he's got that leadership review coming up. I'm sure that, I don't think anything's going to happen to him, but they're gonna ask that question, which is like, he's really good at policy and he's a really good attack dog, but people don't like him. How can we win an election when barely anybody likes this man? So it's good news for the Tories, I would say, but it also raises questions about the future of Pierre Poilievre, I reckon.
From Blacklocks as well. This letter clarifies Prime Minister confusion. The approval of Indigenous groups is not, in fact, mandatory in the selection of nation-building projects, says Environment Minister Joly Dabsarin. The minister in a letter clarified an August 7th claim by the Prime Minister that projects must advance the interests of Indigenous people. But now she's saying in an August 27th letter to Advisory Council and on impact assessment said only consideration of Indigenous views was mandatory. This is typical of the Liberals. Like, it's just, you never know what's what. She made no reference to the legal text of Bill C5, an act to enact the free trade and labor mobility in Canada that left Cabinet to define the criteria for speedy removal of new industrial projects. Clear as mud.
Yep, very, very vague, but definitely something that you can put $40 or $50 billion a year into, do what you want, and keep it vague.
Yeah, because he said, Carney told reporters on August 7th that more was required. The core to the act, core to the objective, these projects must advance the interests of Indigenous people and they must contribute collectively to clean growth and meet Canada's objective with respect to climate change. We don't want pie-in-the-sky projects. We want projects that have a high likelihood of success, and it'll require hard, he goes on to talk about all that, the typical stuff that he talks about. But we get to see
Pie-in-the-sky projects, so that would be what, carbon capture? That is pretty much the definition of pie in the sky as far as I'm concerned. Digging holes and putting the emissions from oil production in that hole. I mean, just the craziest thing that anybody's ever thought of. But that's not pie in the sky, obviously. That's serious climate action.
And Mark Holland, he was one of the very outspoken Liberal MPs when he was with the Trudeau government. Now he's the operator of the Canadian National Exhibition. Yesterday, he received a 6-figure fine for serious violations of anti-money laundering regulations at the Fairground betting parlor. Mark Holland, the ex-Liberal health minister, is the new chief executive at CNE. And he's the guy that told you can't even go on holidays. Remember when he was in the Liberal caucus? No going on holidays, no burning gas. And then he's like, come to the CNE. Climate change is over for him. He said the casino failed to assess and document the money laundering and terrorist financing risks related to the products. That's a great place to launder money, right? You take in cash and then you take out cash.
That's perfect. Dream, isn't it?
Yeah, they got a fine of $199,000. I don't know how they come up with that number. The irregularities were uncovered during a random inspection. Maybe they should do more than a random inspection then, if they found that, right?
I mean, it might just be that this is like a box ticking thing that they fell afoul of. You never, considering the size of the fine, you think maybe it's not that serious, is it? Because it is quite a small fine, that overall. But who knows? Mark Holland's not going to tell us anyway, is he? All of his political principles just gone by the wayside. He doesn't. He's not bothered anymore. He's not going to tell us.
He was one of the few Liberal MPs that resigned, including Pascal Saint-Onge, but like Sean Fraser, Anita Anand. They talked those ones into coming back, though. Anita Anand and Sean Fraser. But Mark Holland said he was hated by the Conservatives. Conservatives hated. No organization would want to hire me. My marriage failed. Wow. And then my space with my children was not a good place. You said some stuff that was just literally crazy. You told Canadians that they couldn't drive in their car to go on a vacation.
Astonishing that he would be so self-pitying when he'd, as you say, been such a controversial figure ruling over our lives. But this is often, I find that they're often like this. These magnates, these ministers, these overlords in our society, they often do kind of feel sorry for themselves, don't they? It's kind of resign then. If you're unhappy, resign now. Go away and leave and let somebody else come and do it.
He was one of the more toxic.
I mean, is that so? Why is that message? We need to hear that message, I think, a lot more often. If you're gonna whine about it, just go away.
He was one of the more toxic MPs for sure. Very much outspoken and toxic to Canadians. And then this is what he's saying: no organization wanted to hire me. My marriage failed. My space with my children not in a good place. His passionate thing, he had believed in it ardently, and which was his purpose in life, was in ashes in his feet. So the Trudeau Liberals, when they collapsed, I guess that was the end of his. He had committed so much of his life to that basically climate religion.
Well, he also pushed, as health minister, he also pushed quite strongly to create a situation where people with only mental health problems could kill themselves be killed with a doctor's assistance on the MAID program. That was one of his most controversial policies. And I can remember him coming out and saying, it's outrageous that we would draw a distinction between mental health and physical health when it comes to the right to suicide. And I was like, somebody that just seems to have the moral sense of a pigeon.
These next examples, you wonder why this one never resigned. I doubt if she would ever resign, because she would never see herself as a failure. But let's just listen in on Melanie Joly.
We need to create new partnerships in the world. The world is being redistributed in economic blocks right now. And that is why, for countries that believe in free trade, there's a space. We can work with others. And we will work with Europe. And we will work with our other Asian countries. And that's also super important, because it's our way to make sure that we continue to benefit from all the advantages that trade has given us over the last decades.
And before we comment, let's just play one more clip from Melanie Joly. Oh, do we have that second one? Yeah, look, let's play that second one from Melanie Joly here.
You'll have the chance to ask your questions. It's all good. Yep. David, after you.
Based on what Mr. Leger said yesterday,
yeah.
The urgency of dealing with Trump that existed at the election, it's less urgent, and voters are prepared to give Minister LeBlanc time to sort that out. But it is urgent to deal with economy, jobs, and affordability.
Yep.
If I'm reading, that's the takeaway from Leger's presentation and what your cabinet is doing?
Well, I think that people want us to be in action mode. And I think that there is urgency, and particularly when it comes to the economy. All economies of the world are readapting to the reality of what the Trump administration is doing, period. And so what we're doing is we're doing different things. We're doing, first and foremost, we're taking care of ourselves. You've heard that throughout the elections. The Prime Minister was clear. The Canadians gave us a mandate to take care of the economy. And while others will get weaker, we will become stronger. The other thing that we're working on is obviously to be closer to Europe and to closer to certain countries in Asia, because we know we're too dependent on the U.S. when it comes to trade. And that is clearly a focus of what we're doing as a government.
She also said that, I don't think we have this clip, that there's lots of deals are coming to Canada. And if I was a reporter there, I'd say, can you name some? Just a couple. One, two.
Yeah, and then what would she say? She'd say what she always says. I'm not going to tell the press that. You know, I'll leave that to Mark Carney to discuss. And you see that, you saw a little glimpse. I watched that press conference, and she did it several times, where the reporters were shouting questions at her. And she was like, okay, guys. Jesus, like, well, I'm going to answer all your questions. It's like, why do you think they're shouting at you? Because you never answer questions and you walk away after 5 minutes usually. But on this occasion, she wanted to hang around for like 20 minutes or something, and she was like patronizing them. It's just such a terrible demeanor that this woman has. You know, Canada's philosopher in chief here. I think she just rubs people up the wrong way. I mean, I get that impression from the reporters who are there as well, and they're pretty chummy with the Liberals anyway. But once again, I mean, she comes out, she states the absolute obvious as though she's figured it out and pioneered it. It's like, the world is changing. Oh yeah, thanks for that, Melanie. I had no idea, actually. I'm so glad that you're in charge of this. You're going to guide us through this stormy weather. But then she went on and said, don't worry though, don't worry about America, lads, because we've got Europe and some countries in Asia. Okay, so Europe, literally stagnant. It's stagnancy incorporated in Europe. That's going to help us, is it? Also thousands of miles away. And then we've got Asia. Okay, I've said before, Vietnam. Vietnam's a bit of a success story. China, we're in a trade war with them. Japan, completely stagnant. Same with South Korea. What are you talking about? But as you said, give us specific examples. Because otherwise, you know, unfortunately, she just sounds like maybe she's not the best qualified individual to be talking about this kind of thing.
You know, they're talking about they're going to make Canada the strongest country in the world, and they're going to do this, they're going to do that, they're going to do this. And one of the things she did say was true. We're going to look after ourselves. And I think she should have just ended there. We're going to make sure we look after ourselves. And ourselves meaning just the Liberal MPs. Because it doesn't seem like the rest of Canada is getting looked after. And, you know, and they've also waged war with the tech, the big tech. And here it is. Here's a picture here of Donald Trump had a big, it's not a round table, but a long table of the biggest tech companies in the United States. And our government has decided to wage war with the tech companies. They've waged war with Mark Zuckerberg is sitting to the left of Trump there. Zuckerberg, the Facebook thing that's actually hurting our business. The bill C-18 is crushing local independent media. There's Zuckerberg to his left. There's Bill Gates, who was like Trump was the devil to him, and all of a sudden Bill Gates is there fawning over Trump. Sergey is there from Google. I've listened to this whole conference. And, you know, again, the press gets invited in. The press is in the room. They get to ask questions. And this would never happen in Canada. Sam Altman's there. They're all of them basically with really good what you call accolades to Trump. They're thanking him for his leadership, thanking him for this, thanking him for that. Sam Altman. And then next to Sam Altman was I'm just trying to remember all these pictures that were there. I mean, basically everybody was there. Elon Musk was invited, and Elon declined to go. He did not attend this event. But Chamath was there. Oh, I can't even remember all the names that were there. All the big names in tech. Tim Cook, that's who was there. Tim Cook was very much a politician in that realm as well. Again, thanking
Who's
Trump.
that next to Zucky? Is that Michael Bloomberg? I can see there.
I think you're right. And then Tim Cook, he was asking around the table, who's bringing money to the table? Tim Cook says, we got $600 billion that's coming in. Google committed to, and I can't remember the numbers now, $200 billion. And then Zuckerberg there talking about they're building this AI factory that is as big as Manhattan, and just on and on and on and on. Those are the real deals. Those are the deals. Why are we waging war with the big tech instead of welcoming them? Because we have energy. They'll come for the energy, but not if we're waging war against them.
It also, like a lot of people will look at this, a lot of critics of Trump, they look at this and say, oh, this is awful. This just shows how the oligarchy is in control of the United States and so on and so on. But actually, this model of the government and the leading industrialists, if you want to call them that, working together, that kind of synergy, but also with labor, which is absent here. But that idea of like all being on the same page and working together, that goes way back to, FDR and people like that. You could even say Teddy Roosevelt. But this goes back, this is like an old idea in the United States. And it's something that the Democratic Party and the left in general used to recognize as essential. This is something that not just FDR, but people like LBJ and Kennedy and all that, they used to recognize how important it was to have this, cooperation between big business and the government. And it is interesting you point out, like, we do seem to not have that really in Canada, not quite anymore. But that used to also be present in Canada, of course. It's kind of the post-war consensus was built on this idea of like this merging together and sort of everybody trying to pull in the same direction.
These are the biggest companies in the world.
It's interesting.
The biggest companies in the world and the most influential companies, especially when we talk about AI, all of them in that room. And, and they actually, you should go watch this. Everybody should go watch this because they drew reflection as to what this administration is like versus the previous administration. And I know a lot of the Canadian broadcasters and media call Donald Trump a dictator and all these things. But go listen to what these people said. One of the things they said that they had an EV mandate. Biden administration had an EV meetup at the White House, and they didn't invite the guy that started the whole thing on electric vehicles. Elon Musk was shut out of that invitation. Not even invited. Tesla was not even invited. And he said that the last time they couldn't even get any kind of consensus. It was more about how to regulate big tech than it was about how to expand and grow American dominance in the world.
Well, we're just about, aren't we, to look at GDP per capita, Canada versus US. One of the reasons that the US has surged ahead, not just of Canada, but Europe as well in the last sort of 20 years, is because they've innovated, haven't they? And a lot of that is just technology. They've really devoted themselves to that innovation, whereas Europe, infamously, has devoted itself just to regulation and trying to control these things.
Let's put up that next chart there. You can take a look at that. There it is, right? Oh, no, next one. No, too far. The GDP one, if you can find it in there. But yeah, it's if you're serious about the future and understand it, you recognize that AI is going to lead the future. And who are the leaders? It's the American big tech companies. It's like by far, I think they shared a stat there, 70% of, or it might even be more, 70 or 80% of that, it all belongs to the United States. And then Canada has decided to wage war with Facebook, with Tesla. Tesla, the most important company in the world right now. The most important company in the world in so many different ways. They decided to wage war against the owner. Not even against Tesla, but just it's almost like an ideological war and calling him names like Nazi. It's absolutely clownish behavior.
And the guy who also probably is the more important company that he is in control of is SpaceX, which just has this unique technology for getting into space and sending
largest,
satellites into space and things like that. And that also not just alienated Tesla, as you say, but alienated that particular guy who controls SpaceX. Not
yeah,
that wise, really, is it?
the largest global communications company in the world, the largest global communications company in the world, which is SpaceX, which is the space travel, and also Starlink, which is so important. And then you take a look at Tesla, by far the leader in the EV space. Supposedly we're supposed to drive electric vehicles, yet you shut out the guy that creates the best EVs in the world. And also the solar company, Neuralink, Boring Company, Optimus, which is looking to lead in that area as well. And this is absolutely ridiculous. I did download this, so it's available in Canada right now. You can download it. The Robotaxi app is now available in Canada. So you can download it and join the waiting list. So it's, I think, the number 5th app just launched on App Store there, Robotaxi app. So there you go. There you go. I've used Starlink for a number of years. Love it. I also drive a Tesla. But here's a picture of Mark Carney, another photo op. Look at this photo op. Hey, how the government-funded media made sure that the center point was there, right?
Well, the funniest thing about that picture is the foreground where you've got the out of focus. It's almost like you're peeking through a very busy room.
The secretive meeting.
The con dog is holding court.
Well, in that secret meeting, now this is from Holland Owns, the federal deficit is likely more than $80 billion. And that's Pierre Poilievre said that yesterday. Cabinet's original forecast is 42. How did you double that? Like, you know what I mean? Like, how? Justin Trudeau had pledged a deficit.
And even that was kind of like shocking, wasn't it? Yeah. People like, God, 40 billion. It's like, double it.
Justin Trudeau had pledged a budget over around of 42 billion. Carney doubled that without introducing a budget. So we're expecting a budget here. I think it's in October we're going to get that budget. But the budget office is putting out a warning, though, right? It's all show, said Poilievre. There's talk of targets. One day you might find savings somewhere, but since he took office, let's judge him by his actions. The budget office months ago warned 42 billion was unrealistic. Precise calculation was difficult since cabinet never tabled the budget, said the budget office. It's an absence of a budget. It's very difficult to know exactly what the government forecasts are. And that's from the budget office.
Indeed. Yeah, kind of, yeah. Can you imagine if Mark Carney, just for a second, just imagine Mark Carney had not won that election and it was the other way around. It was a minority Poilievre government. Can you imagine what he would come out and say if Poilievre didn't put a budget out? Can you just think about it for a minute? He would be furious, wouldn't he? He'd bring down all of his arrogance and he would say, I've been working in finance for 40 years and I've never seen the like in my life. But somehow, we've just forgotten about it, haven't we? It's like, it's just disappeared now.
The CBC and CTV would be on him like attack dogs as well. It
would be relentless, yeah.
They're hinting at layoffs. The cabinet will make adjustments to the 440,000 federal payroll employees this fall. That's from Francois Philippe Champagne. It's going to be, we do the fool of the day. It's going to be tough with Francois in the news and Melanie Joly all at once. It's tough to pick from that. But he wouldn't discuss any layoffs. He said there will be tough choices, though, in his usual language there. I think you can do that better, right? Definitely, it's nation ready, I would say yes. And he said, this was mandated by me and the Prime Minister to make government more efficient. Let's see, Francois. Canadians, people watching at home, understand. Don't forget, he told you the other day that you got that $70 a month, so you should be more than happy. That's what Canadians wanted, which works out to about 76 cents a day or something like that.
And I'm a little bit disappointed. It's rare that I say this, but I'm a little bit disappointed in Blacklocks that they didn't highlight the surreal moment in that press conference that they're quoting from here, where he said, he spoke to his mother and she said, you need to stop, you need to cut back on spending. And he's like going on about his mother. But it's not included. That's so surreal. I feel like that should have been clipped by one of those accounts that post videos. And if not, maybe we'll do it. Because I just couldn't believe that he brought his mother into this.
Well, Franco Terrazino highlights something. We talk about the Sky Canada lady all the time. No, that's not it. We got to talk about, maybe you don't have this one. We talk about the Sky Canada lady that pulls in almost 400,000. Well, they hired this new head of the government, the Major Projects Office, and they're estimating her salary to be 577 and 679. She makes the Sky Canada look like she's barely making a living.
I mean, what the hell? That's considerably more than Mark Carney earns, isn't it?
Hey, she's running a new office. I wonder how many staff. We don't have that. Let's wait till we get that. How many staff are in that office? How many this? How many that?
Yes, so Carney gets 419. So it's a couple of hundred, or sort of $250,000 more than the Prime Minister.
I don't think.
I mean, I don't know. Sometimes, I do understand. You do have to sometimes pay the kind of a competitive rate, don't you? But the question that I always have when I see things like this, they use that excuse. It's like, oh, if you were in charge of Goldman Sachs or something like that, you would earn X, Y, Z. But it's kind of like the people in charge of Goldman Sachs are like just impossibly competent. They're just amazingly skilled and competent, and they can do so much. And then you see these people in the federal government, and they're just complete losers. They can't do anything. I mean, I'm not saying that about this woman here. She might be a all-time great, but in the past, I've seen that where they just get low-grade people in, and then to justify it, they say, "Oh, look at Goldman Sachs." It's kind of like comparing apples and oranges, there, mate.
We did talk about her a few days ago when she had that charge against her, where she didn't, and I can't remember exactly what was on, but she didn't have a clean record. Daniel Smith doing a lot of town halls. That's amazing. We don't see that. Like, I don't see Eby doing any town halls. You don't see a lot of that, but Daniel Smith definitely doing a lot of town halls. And this one, she said she's instructed all levels of government, police, including the RCMP, have been instructed not to participate in Carney's gun confiscation. And then adding, she'll close the mail loophole to stop services like Canada Post from helping the feds in this area. So there you go. But she's doing a lot of town halls. A cynic would say, she's getting ready for the referendum votes. She's definitely out there.
Well, she wants to be in charge of it, doesn't she? Which is the right thing to do politically. She wants to survive whatever happens. She wants to still be around. And the only way to do that is get the bull by the horns. And she's, that's exactly what she's doing.
I commend her for going into the room and facing the public. Why doesn't David Eby do that? Why doesn't, even the showman there, Doug Ford, he only likes to stand up for the media and dump liquor bottles out. Why doesn't Doug Ford do a bunch of town halls? See what he gets, right?
I think Doug Ford would do that, actually.
But then you should do it. There you go. You should send him this. Because Daniel Smith has done a ton of these, and she's doing more.
Yeah, she likes to get out and about, doesn't she? But Doug Ford is famous, as I've said this before, he's famous or infamous or whatever for giving out his personal cell phone number to just randomers. So he loves that. He loves to press the flesh and do it all. So I think he probably would, but Daniel, you have to remember, Daniel Smith is doing this for a very specific reason. She's and it's about her career and it's about her future, I think. So I think she sees an opportunity and she's taken it, and I reckon Doug would do the same. As for David Eby, however, can you imagine David Eby going into BC Interior in the north, going to little town halls, going to a town hall? I just no, a town hall in Merritt. I cannot imagine him doing that.
Stephen Guilbeault posted this photo up with the Prime Minister. It looks like a one-on-one meeting. I'm hoping that meeting was telling him that he's done.
Looks like they've been painting in that room, doesn't it? And they've covered the table.
But you know what I mean? In this one-on-one meeting, because Guilbeault, remember when they asked him if he would continue? He said that if he didn't get his climate agenda, that he might as well just take his stuff and go home. Remember that? He famously said that too when Trudeau was resigning, that he might as well just take his stuff and go home. Well, here's your opportunity, Stephen.
Yeah, I think, imagine it's that famous saying about the tent. And if he was outside of the tent and doing a certain thing inside of that tent, it would make life difficult for Carney, wouldn't it? So better to have him in and doing that out of the tent as things stand. But, it might, I think inevitably it'll come to a head because Carney's getting in more and more trouble with the economy. He'll be looking at his approval ratings and being a bit worried, looking at that other poll that said everybody's freaking out about cost of living crisis. Carney has to grow the economy. And people like Stephen Gilboa want to stop that happening for their own ideological reasons. They think it's better for the planet. Eventually, there's going to be a collision, isn't there?
Yeah, it's if you think about it just from like an image, it's the economy keeps failing and where the unemployment's going higher, and then there's Pierre Poilievre. Look over here, and Daniel Smith put out that video. Look at all the riches we have. Use those, and and the liberals have ignored that and said, oh, we can do wind instead, and they've ignored our natural riches. Daniel Smith put out that video that's very, very compelling. Pierre Poilievre has been saying it forever, and Stephen Gilboa against even cutting down trees. And we've seen that in British Columbia too. And even when I interviewed a forestry executive, it said it was Stephen Gilboa's influence on the BC government that stopped, even allowing people to get their cut blocks here in British Columbia. And at some point, you would think that Mark Carney is like, what do we got? What do we got? What do we got to help the Canadian economy? And somebody's going to say, well, we have all these resources. We have those.
You mean carbon capture? That resource?
Anyway, now it's so obvious to so many, and I believe that they're going to end up having to capitulate and figure that one out too, just like they did with the consumer carbon tax, just like they did with the EV mandate. They're going to have to capitulate and actually put an oil pipeline into place here because that's our riches.
That's a real dilemma for them, because if they do that, they might lose Quebec, basically, in a nutshell. And if they lose Quebec, they lose power. So it's this old question of a leadership class, a ruling class. Do they put themselves first, their own survival and their own position first, or do they put the benefit of the whole country first? Which will, by doing that, you sacrifice your own power. It's they're in a very deep hole, I think.
I did an interview yesterday with Brennan Day. He's the MLA out there in Courtney Comox. And we talked about the ER closures in BC, and they're sadly the norm here in British Columbia. We had another one today. I think we put it up. If you go on Kelowna now, you're going to find it on the site. I believe that was 100 Mile House today. Is that the one that closed today? Just going to check that.
Yeah.
100 Mile House today. I did that interview with them. That story should be up later today, I believe, on the ER closures in BC being sadly the norm. I also interviewed the minister.
I think it is online now.
It is? Okay.
As we speak.
There you go. The minister, I interviewed the community safety minister, Terry Young, who was actually in Montreal on vacation. He was kind enough to call in. I got 15 minutes with him. That's a good interview. That story should be up today at some point as well. You can watch the video on Now Media, though, on our YouTube channel. And we're talking about crime. And crime in Canada. And that's the big theme. Pierre Poilievre pushing for similar laws to Castle. And we talked in that interview about, even our own Kelowna, the mayor sent a letter to Sean Fraser asking for bail reform. We talked about it yesterday, about, the revolving door for some of these criminals. But here again, another home invasion in Ontario. They allegedly ran into a 29-year-old female's car, kidnapped her by throwing her a van, stole the keys, went into her home, shot her dad, and then are out on bail.
I mean, I'm not familiar with this story, but I almost want to call BS on that, because that just cannot possibly be true, can it? It can't possibly be true. I don't want that to be true. I don't want to live in a world where that's true. And
we brought this up yesterday. It was Rob Shaw now is pointing it out, something that we pointed out yesterday, that chart. Bad news for the current EB government, BC NDP government. Blame everything on Trump, but here it is. People are done with blaming Trump. They want some action, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we talked about this at length, didn't we? And this is like I said right away, Champagne, when he came out and started talking about his mother, he was doing that just as this had come out, and it was a very different tone. And I think, we like to dream and fantasize about the possibility that our leaders are actually quite smart and competent, and that they're a lot better than we are, but they're not. He will genuinely just have looked at that and thought, okay, I'm going to talk about cost of living. and so get ready for that. Like this will affect what you hear from our elites.
You definitely could go on the road with that impersonation.
The trick is, it's kind of like Kermit the Frog / Jordan Peterson, but with a Quebec accent. That's how you do it.
I thought we had this. Do we have this clip from CTV of the liberal pundit coming out and calling Pierre Poilievre a racist for going after the temporary foreign workers program? But we're going to play a clip here from Mark Carney, though, first in 2013, and his thoughts on the temporary foreign workers program. Let's go ahead and play that clip.
Reliance, certainly on temporary foreign workers for lower skilled jobs, which prevent the wage adjustment mechanism from both improving, well, making sure that Canadians are paid higher wages, but also that the firms improve their productivity as is necessary. So we don't want to mask it, and as the government's review and as the intent of the review to ensure that this is used for transition for those higher skilled gaps that do exist and can hold our economy. So,
you know, the quote there is, one doesn't want an over-reliance, certainly on temporary foreign workers for lower skilled jobs. Huh. Weird,
Which prevent wage adjustment mechanism from making sure that Canadians are paid higher wages. Gee, I mean, it's kind of the thing you learn in basic economics.
So is Tim Hortons a high-skilled job nowadays? Is Tim Hortons like high skill? Is that where you go for the high-skilled jobs?
It must be, yeah. I don't think we've got it here, but there's a very interesting tweet from the head of the Canadian Federation of whatever it's called in the small businesses.
CFIB, yeah.
Yeah, he's come out with a tweet where he said how crucial it is to have foreign workers and all the rest of it, and how desperate they are to make sure that this is, like, their voice is heard. And it's very interesting to see the reaction. I know it's Twitter, X, whatever, and it's not necessarily real life, but he got ratioed, as the kids say. Like, people aren't willing to swallow it anymore, and they're all coming out and saying the obvious: just pay more money. Like, try harder, work harder, be better. If you can't run a business without indentured servants from India, you shouldn't be in this sector as it is. You know, maybe you should work for Tim Hortons.
Let's play this clip here from CTV, and this is what the CTV dragged out. They bring out the liberal pundits to talk about the typical thing. If you talk about immigration, they're going to bring the people out and tell you that you're a racist. Let's play it.
Yeah, I do understand the point, Sharon, about sort of like the young, and we saw it in the demographic shifts in the last election, right? The younger generations and the frustrations that they feel, and, you know, those numbers from Stats Can about unemployment back that up. I just also think that there are potential vulnerabilities in casting immigration as even close to any kind of a silver bullet.
It 100% is, and you know, listening to that interview and watching that interview that you did with MP Rempel, quite frankly, was infuriating. Like, I'm going to be quite frank and honest. We are the Conservative Party, and Pierre Poilievre and MP Rempel are treading a very dangerous line of what I'm going to call a dog whistle of racism. Because if you want to have a conversation about the fact that we have an issue with immigration, we do, not because they're immigrants and they're coming in and taking away. It's because our society and our system hasn't kept up. We don't have enough housing. We don't have enough resource put in place to help everybody. So let's have that conversation. But to say it's foreign workers that are taking away jobs from Canadians and the solution is youth, to me, is simplistic. It's nonsense. And honestly, it's like, let's talk about taxi drivers, for example, in major cities. There is a reason why taxi drivers.
See, they just drag it out. Hey, it's like, so, like, she has her own answer there. It's just comedy. The country's not prepared to take in that many immigrants. The country's not prepared to take in that level of immigration. You said it yourself there, lady. The country is not prepared, so we should stop bringing in that many immigrants until we're prepared to absorb more. Nobody's saying have no immigrants. We're saying the country should be able to bear it. It's not like we should figure out how to wait. We obviously don't know how to figure out how to service more people, do we? Haven't? Like, I mean, healthcare. We haven't figured that out. But she goes right away to racism, right? So then again, then she should also call Mark Carney a racist, because he just said that when he was the Canada governor, didn't he?
Justin Trudeau.
Justin Trudeau. And then we're going to play a little clip here from Mr. Eby.
He made an appalling comment. He was asked about my proposal to get rid of the temporary foreign worker program, and what did he say? He said, oh, he's talked to business lobbyists, corporate lobbyists, and they assure him they would like to continue to bring in low-wage labor from poor countries. Of course they would, Mr. Carney. Of course they want your corporate lobbyist friends and your other elites want to stuff their pockets by shutting hardworking Canadians out of jobs and giving those jobs to temporary foreign workers. You are not supposed to be working for corporate lobbyists. You're supposed to be working for Canadian workers.
I thought we were going to play the clip here with Eby, but it's showing you that Premier Eby also demands an end to the temporary foreign workers program.
But the thing is,
no, just put up the video or the slide. There you go.
You said about that woman, that pundit, whoever she is, I don't even know who she is, but you were saying that it's comedy, and I think that's right. It is comedy now, and the best reaction she can hope for is laughter, because nobody's listening. Nobody's listening to that anymore. Nobody cares. Nobody's buying that argument anymore. That's an argument from 10, 20, 30 years ago. You need to come up with something else, because that's gone.
My bigger point there is
I've seen that in the US.
CTV
I've seen that in Britain. I've seen that everywhere. It's gone.
Yeah.
It's dead. It's not coming back. It's not coming back. And some of the people who are most upset about it, needless to say, are themselves immigrants, like permanent residents, citizens, people whose parents were immigrants. You know, you can talk about dog whistles all you want. Nobody's listening to you anymore.
Yeah, the sad thing is CTV and CBC trot that stuff out there right away. You know what I mean? As to again defend. We talked about it yesterday. Our theme was the benefit of the few at the expense of the many, and that's what Pierre Poilievre points out there too. Yeah, sure, the corporations want it. What did Carney say yesterday? Two things when he talks to people is Trump and trade, and they want the temporary foreign workers program. Who are you talking to? Who are you talking to? Large corporations that want cheap labor? That's who you're talking to, because you're sure not talking to the Canadian public.
To be honest, like, I feel like more needs to be said along the lines of these are just not very competent business people. That's what they are. They're not very good at business. If you're so clueless about how to run a business that you have to get in foreigners on low wages who are like tied to you, like a kind of serfdom, if that's what you need just to break even, you're not good at business. You need to like step aside and let somebody a bit better than you take over.
And originally, this temporary foreign workers program was put into place to bring in where we didn't have the high skilled, the engineers and that stuff. It was brought in to fill those gaps. And all of a sudden, we're filling gaps at Tim Hortons, and this is why the youth don't have jobs. That's why the unemployment rate is in the 20%. We're filling these jobs in Tim Hortons and like other fast food places and that. And here's the thing again, that this is Michelle Rempel-Garner putting this out here, and we talk about this. How many times we've talked about it? The UN condemns Canada's temporary foreign worker program as a breeding ground for contemporary slavery. And you and I have talked about this many, many times. And Mark Carney said it himself in 2013 that this is not a place for low-skilled jobs. And yet, Mark Carney now says that when he talks to people, that's the number two thing that people want is more cheap labor. And then
ridiculous, isn't it? It's I just find it it's unusually transparent. Usually it's a bit harder to like dissect all of the nonsense, but it's just so obvious here, isn't it? What's really going on?
Look at CTV and CBC. Look at what they do. Instead of bringing out some young students, we did a story. It's up on our site, actually, Kelowna. We talked to a young student about their access to jobs. Instead of talking to students of people that are affected, who did they bring out? Some liberal pundit that goes to the racism card to try and shut you up, right? To kind of cancel you. That's what they come up with.
It makes you think, doesn't it? Gee, like, who owns CTV? Is it possible that maybe they have some? I don't know. Maybe I'm just it's unreasonable of me to think that, but
you should really question what CTV, like why didn't they bring in young students who are losing their job? Why didn't they talk to people? Why don't they talk to people that like why don't they bring us on? There you go. I talked to Terry Young, Minister Terry Young for Community Safety, and this is Gavin Dew put this out. And this is the thing, because BC businesses are in crisis. 1 in 5 are literally say they can't make it another year here in British Columbia with all the crime and chaos in the streets here. And then all the the taxes and everything else. And this here's another example. Victoria business moving from downtown to safety concerns. We moved from downtown because of safety concerns. That's why we're here in the Landmark District. And then here's another first for Kelowna, and this is not a first you want to be when Kelowna. And this is Kelowna #1 per 100,000 people in property crime. #1. Good interview with the minister, though. The minister was kind enough to give us some time. And I asked him about accountability and if the NDP and that need to be more accountable to the people. And he said, yeah. And I said, will they commit more to the press and to the people and be more accountable and share information with Eleanor Sturko, his critic? He said, yes. But we don't see that, though, because when I talked to Brennan Day, he said he has to file FOIs to get information from the health ministry. How is that? So you're saying half the electorate, because they don't lose those elections, half the electorate doesn't get access to information, like in the health ministry? They have to file FOIs, and then it takes weeks to get them. And we just filed an FOI, and what we got back was, after a couple of weeks, you need to be more laser focused on your FOI. That's too broad. So they give you 2 weeks, make you wait 2 weeks, and then tell you that, you need to be more laser focused, and then you just keep kicking it down the road. And then you're going to get a document that's full of black ink covering up the other ink. Right?
And they also charge you. I mean, it's not like it's $5 or something, isn't it? Or is it 10 now?
Yeah.
They charge you a little bit of money, which is obviously a disincentive, isn't it? In England, I mean, I don't know if it's changed since I abandoned that sad island, but in England it was free. So you could send as many as you wanted. And that was on purpose. That was very deliberate because they didn't want to put a financial barrier in the way of accessing information. And yet in Canada, you've got to, and in BC, they even say, if this affects more than one ministry, like tick these boxes. Pay more. And for each ministry, that's a fee. That's the fee sort of increases. So
freedom of the press,
I mean,
not so much.
It's not a huge amount of money, but if you wanted to send off loads of FOIs, which you very might well want to, that's going to cost you a pretty penny.
I mean, the only thing you can do for CTB and CBC for the general public, we got to watch it because we got to see what they're doing, but is unfollow them, shut them out, because for them to go back to that dog whistle nonsense is just ridiculous. And here's a story that's important, that continues to be important, and we're working on this story. We've asked the CVSE for an interview, and they say they don't have anybody for an interview. We've asked them for some information, so we're expecting that information. We give them a deadline of Monday. But here's another example, and this one is in Yale, BC. Let's play this little clip. Yeah, I mean, there's another semi on the side of the road. Trucker safety is so important here in British Columbia and all of Canada. There's so many big trucks on the road, and we've seen that. CBC did do a good article, and they went undercover and found that you could basically buy your license in Ontario. Remember that we showed that clip, and just like you're supposed to pay $10,000 to take all this driver training. Well, you can get it for $4,000. We can get that real quick for you.
Which is a sign of a massive degradation in societal trust, and it's also a question about corruption, obviously, isn't it?
Wow. And in
none
Florida,
of that is good.
That illegal immigrant did a U-turn on a turnpike there, and decapitated 3 people, and that person couldn't even identify 2 of 12 road signs or something like that. And here's another CBC article. Check this one out. Florida is ending vaccine mandate. What do Canadian travelers need to do? And then read the second part there. Doctor warns against sheer, unadulterated craziness. What?
It's funny, isn't it?
Is it?
It's quite colourful language. Notice as well, it's not plural, it's singular. Doctor.
Yeah.
So they found the one. They found the one that would say something like that.
Maybe they got the words mixed up. Dr. Crazy warns against sheer unadulterated. Unbelievable. But the CBC, quick to trot that out, right? Quick to trot that out.
But this also plays to stereotypes, doesn't it? I mean, Florida is generally considered to be the craziest place in the US, and they're dining out on that stereotype, aren't they? Which I thought CBC told me that was naughty to do. You shouldn't do that.
You know how many Canadians go to Florida? Lots. Pam Bondi, the Attorney General, just announced the expansion of the task force to cover the northern border with Canada, further crackdown on cartels, human trafficking. So let's listen in on Pam Bondi.
We are now expanding Joint Task Force Alpha. It has 5 steps. We will now cover, the task force will now cover our northern border in Canada, of course, and all of our maritime borders. Our incredible partner again at DHS, Christy Nome, and I are expanding this to include our DEA, ATF, and FBI agents to this task force to give us even more manpower. We will receive.
We did that story a little while ago about the Falkland bust, where apparently the RCMP was given the lead by the DEA, but then refused to share information with the DEA. So it's puzzling for sure. That was Rob Shaw that broke that story here in BC. Puzzling for sure. And obviously, you know, they're saying there's a bunch of stories out now. The FBI is saying it as well, that there's a Mexican-Chinese cartel that are kind of using BC as kind of like the funnel through for a lot of these precursor drugs and everything. And so looks like they're stepping up some enforcement of the...
Part of the... I've heard an optimistic approach, because you know how Trump's got rid of the de minimis thing? Apparently that is going to have a massive effect on drug production, like fentanyl production in the US, because that's how it's obtained, is they do these like little boxes and envelopes and things like that, and then that's how they get the precursors. But I suppose the Americans might now be thinking, all right, we've got rid of that de minimis thing, but the Canadians obviously haven't. So they might be worried that production will shift north, but
you could probably do your
it's an ongoing tragedy, isn't it?
If you wanted to do your work on your imitation thing, there, Pam Bondi is an easy one to do because she likes to accentuate each word, right? Like she's very
man power.
She's very she's a very powerful lady, though. You know.
Yeah, got nice hair as well, hasn't she? Spent a lot of money on that, I reckon.
She's definitely. I wouldn't mess with her. How's that?
She was married, I've just learned, to Scott Fitzgerald, so she's obviously literary as well. That's good.
Trump wants to rebrand the Department of Defense the Department of War. He likes that. He's a marketing kind of guy for sure. He likes to use different things. See if he can get that in there. But he wants to give the Department of Defense a more mean title. So like, you know, like it's like when you take over a hockey team or a franchise and you switch their jerseys to black because that's a meaner color. You know, when you like say you had like Snoopy on the cover and you had this pink jersey with Snoopy on it, and then you know you're always getting beat up. So then you know you turn into a black jersey with a lightning bolt or something like that, right?
I mean, like it says here in this, we've got a little bit of text here that from 1789 till 1947, that was the name.
Yeah,
so it was something.
Not a stretch. It's not a stretch.
After the Second World War, they changed it.
Yeah, they were to soften it because you know they dropped a couple of atomic bombs on Japan, so I think they were trying to soften their look in the world.
Yeah, it was just part of that. You know, that was all across the world where the people were just sick of war, weren't they? So war became very unfashionable after Hitler and the First World War and Stalin and all that. Therefore, they thought, let's call it defense, even when we go and bomb people.
You put this next one here. Russian President Vladimir Putin rejected the proposed Western security guarantees for Ukraine, warning that any foreign troops deployed in the country would be a legitimate target. There's more to that, though. He's saying that if it's before the peace deal is done, he's saying you don't put them there, they'll be legitimate targets. But he did not rule out that you could have them there after a peace deal is signed.
Yeah, I mean, this is directly relevant to us because that could easily be Canadian soldiers, and this is what everybody said anyway, didn't they? That the Russians would look at that as a kind of massive provocation, although they look at everything as a provocation, don't they?
What? I mean, in all honesty, what country is putting troops in there where there's an active war going on, not expecting them to be involved in the skirmish? Like what? Like, come on.
Yeah, it's just now and then we're reminded, aren't we, of how serious this is, because obviously Russia's military is not up to much, but its nuclear arsenal is up to a great deal, and that's quite frightening, isn't it? I mean, we shouldn't forget how serious that is.
And here we go. We're going to talk about the most important tech guy in the world here, and the left's going to lose their mind right now. They're proposing, well, then he needs it, that and before you lose your mind, listen though, before you lose your mind, Tesla proposes a $1 trillion pay package for Elon Musk. And how does he get that payday? Because he gets nothing unless he gets this. He has to...
In 10 years.
In 10 years, he has to, within 10 years, increase the value of Tesla, the stock value, 8-fold in its earnings by 24-fold. I'd give that deal to anybody. Do you know what I mean?
I mean, there's
has
loads more in there as well, like sell loads of Tesla cars,
You
robots,
know what I mean? Like,
everything. Yeah,
if somebody
it's a
said to
big
you,
list.
if you're running a company, I'm not going to pay you for 10 years. You get no money. But if you hit these milestones and it, makes the company this like 10 times better, 10x and that, I'll give you any. Like even that lady that Carney just doled out over $500,000 to. I'd say like, if you can close 5 deals, I'll give you that salary. If you don't close anything, you get nothing. Zero. Nothing. Nada.
Although he did get, what was it, 29 billion? Yeah, $29 billion
Why though?
last month
Why?
from Tesla. That's
Why?
because he's hit previous targets, isn't it?
Correct. The targets that he made way back in, I think, I'm going to get this date wrong, 2016, 2015, and they were ludicrous targets at the time. They were absolutely insane targets. They were like, you had to like tenfold the stock price, you had to do this, that, and then they achieve 1 million unit sales. And at the time, nobody thought it was possible. And he hit the targets. And then some liberal left-wing lunatic judge comes along and says, that's too much money. And they took it away. And then they've appealed that, and that's why he got awarded that. And I mean, here's a guy who's willing to work for zero, because a lot of the CEOs, like, well, look at the CEOs in Canada, how many are taking, like, even the ICBC, the government one, taking these massive salaries, right? Look at Air Canada. Look at it. Like, remember that? The salary of the Air Canada, they're like 13 million or something like that. And
I just think in general, that class of people in general, the CEO class, are like way, way overpaid. And it's been like that for decades, at least 20, 30 years now. So obviously Elon Musk is like a one-off. He's extremely, good as a businessman and everything, but $1 trillion or even $29 billion, like,
doesn't mean anything.
There's no need for that, really. It's a company, it's an enterprise. Like everybody should get a slice of the pie. I feel like this is something that makes us less civilized.
Before you say that, before you say that, the Tesla, they've tried many, many times to unionize it. Most of the employees, even in Europe, say no, thank you, because the employees are well looked after for Tesla.
No, they do get paid quite well, but I mean, I feel like because the company's so successful, they should be paid more.
They get stock options as well. They get all kinds of stuff, so they're all winning. So there you go. I don't know if we have this in here, just a little bit of tech here. Do we have this last one in here or not? Yeah, this is coming to a place, and this is good. This is for road safety. This is an example of they finally got it working. Let's play this clip. If you're running away from the cops down there in Las Vegas, this is what you're going to get. It's the new grappler instead of like, these long, remember the O.J. Simpson thing where what did they follow the guy for like it seemed like days. Now they got this grappler, which is great for safety because, like these people end up usually in a multi-vehicle crash. So they just hook them up.
It's pretty nice of Batman to lend them that technology.
You just wonder why they haven't done it sooner, right? Like, I mean, this kind of stuff, like all you had to do is watch a few Batman shows and they could have like, oh, we should do that.
Totally. Even Spider-Man with a bit of, adaptation. Anyway,
I think that should eliminate a lot of those people, because they also know in some states, in Canada as well, they have the do not pursue if the person goes over a certain speed, because this causes, usually ends up causing carnage for innocent people up the road.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the same in a lot of places in Europe where they just won't, they snatch phones and things on scooters and they just won't chase them because obviously it puts people at risk.
What I watched yesterday, you talk about scooters, I was driving home yesterday and those one-wheel scooters, the electric scooters, I was doing about 66. I typically go just 6 kilometers over. I set it on while the car drives itself, it goes 66 kilometers. And weaving through me and through all the traffic was a 2-wheel scooter doing about 75K, just flying. And then he comes to the stoplight, and he did stop, and then he went through the red light as well, because obviously none of those regulations apply to him.
I mean, it's nuts, isn't it? Because in that case, and a lot of other people have pointed this out, it is quite literally a motor vehicle. It's a motorized vehicle, isn't it? Or, or an automobile, if you want to call it that. It really should.
He's standing
there
should
obey the rules.
His baggy jeans and hoodie, and just weaving through traffic like nobody's business, like he's on a, And then when the motorist runs him over. Anyway. That's our show for this week. We have lots of good stories that we've done this week, though. Lots of good interviews. We should have that story up with the Minister Terry Young, shortly. How's that Bill C-18 story coming? You've done a few interviews. Where's that one at?
It's I'm very hopeful that I'll finally finish it today, so we can have a look. It's basically just an update on what's going on now, but we've spoken to probably, I would say, the actual experts. We can use the word expert, I think, to apply to these people.
Not the Canadian press experts, where they found some academic hiding in a closet somewhere.
Some biology or something, or physics professor who also likes to talk about the online news hacks, yeah.
And we do thank you for watching. We thank the people that put some money in the tip jar. We thank people that like and share. And if you can help us get the word out, it's good to have a free and independent media. If you like what CBC is doing and CTV, and where they come out and they tell you what to think, how to do it, and they tell you you're a racist and you're all kinds of these names, and they work basically, like, again, that CTV, that interview there, Vasi Kapelis, you got to be ashamed of yourself by putting that person on there and saying, like,
Did you see who else was on there, though? I don't know if you spotted him, but Sebastian, who used to run the media for Pierre Poilievre.
Was he on there?
He was on there. Yeah. That's what he's been doing instead of answering out emails.
He used to phone me lots, Sebastian, and then, when they got what they needed, then all of a sudden they just went dark, hey?
That's how you do it. Big Seb.
Right. There you go. Anyway, that's our show. We're back Monday. 9 a.m. Lots of good interviews lined up for next week as well. Working on a couple of really good stories. The Flee of Capital, and then the trucker safety one. We'll see what we get back from the CVSE. And then the crime and more crime in Canada here, especially how it's impacting small businesses that don't have the tools to deal with it like large corporations do. Like small businesses, that broken window means a lot to them.
Definitely.
We do thank you for watching No Media.
We don't just report the news, we live here too. We're your neighbors, bringing you stories that matter to all of us. No government funding, no outside influence. Kelowna Now, local, independent. News you can trust.